Hey guys, Lord here, and today I wanted to make a video to talk about Monster Hunter Rise's first ever hunter analysis. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you have already seen this, but I'm sure that there are some of you that haven't. So I'll quickly go over what the hunter analysis is. If you think you already know, feel free to skip to the next chapter in the video. There's going to be timestamps down in the description. So, the first ever Kamura Village hunter analysis was released not too long ago. Basically, what this hunter analysis covers is some of the most popular things in the game, specifically with this one, the most popular weapons, buddies, and quests. This is something that we sort of had a shell of in Monster Hunter World, where if you managed to encounter a first Wyverian in the wild, you could talk to them and they would give you your weapon's popularity for the month you're currently in. So, by going back to camp and changing weapons and taking all 14 weapon types to that Wyverian, you could sort of map out a chart of overall weapon popularity for that month. Now, in Rise, it looks like they've taken to doing it themselves in this very cool and well-styled website, which of course there's going to be a link down in the description if you want to go and check it out for yourself. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the data. So first up, they crafted a really nice bar graph to show us the weapons in terms of most used to least used. Now, with no surprise, in first place is Longsword by a hefty 15.2% margin. It's always been one of, if not the most popular weapon, since it is very beginner friendly, and it also has a very high skill ceiling, meaning anyone can use it and feel as though they're doing well, and you can also get very, very good at it if you learn good timing as well as how to counter properly. In second, also with little surprise, are the dual blades. Again, these are always near the top as they're just really fun to use and they have that super cool Beyblade attack that everyone loves. Then you can make them in tons of different elements as they scale really well for elemental matchups. So you're not really stuck using just one or two meta raw options, you have a lot of different ways to play against a lot of different monsters. Coming up next, in third place, we have the light bowgun, which falls less than 1% behind the dual blades. And again, there's not really too much surprise here. It has a vast array of ammo types that are useful, from piercing to elemental to stickies, etc., which means there are just so many different ways to play and to hunt everything. It's also very easy for anyone to pick up, as all you really have to do is point and click. There's a lot of useful information on it, anywhere you look on YouTube, Reddit, anywhere. And the many ways to play it helps add a really good variety to your hunting experience. Following that up in fourth place is the bow, which is one of the highest DPS options in the game currently. It has really good elemental matching, meaning you can make a vast array of weapons and you're not stuck using the same thing for every single hunt. And it also has a really high skill ceiling, which makes this very, very rewarding to learn how to play well. Bow is then followed up by Greatsword, which is very satisfying to play again as it hits really hard, and when you get that super good timing on that true charge slash, it just really, really hits the spot. Now, I think that if Critical Draw had some better options, more akin to what we've seen in previous Monster Hunter installations, this might currently jump just a bit ahead of Bow, but that remains to be seen. Now, just a mere 0.8% behind Greatsword is the Heavy Bowgun, which honestly is kind of surprising that it isn't closer to Light Bowgun, because this is, without a doubt, one of the strongest iterations of Heavy Bowgun that we've seen in the Monster Hunter series. With the addition of the Wire Bug, which gives this the mobility akin to Light Bowgun, and the ability to just straight up tackle through attacks, I personally would have expected to see this one just a bit higher up. Many gunners early on in Rise expected this to completely overshadow Light Bowgun, but obviously that's just not happened to be the case. Next up, separated by just barely over 0.5%, are going to be Switch Axe and Sword and Shield. These have always been good middle-of-the-pack weapons that a lot of people like, but not a ton of people constantly main. Both of them have decent movesets and are generally fun to play, but many people opt for the ease of use and safety of, say, the Longsword or the Light Bowgun. Following those up in 9th place, at probably the highest spot that it's ever been in its lifetime, is Hunting Horn. Now, early in the game, there's a lot of controversy in this, especially in the early demo, over Rise's changes to how we fundamentally play the Hunting Horn. But I think that overall, most people welcome the changes, and you can see it is doing well for itself, ahead of some weapons that we'll see later that you'd typically expect to see higher on this list. Now, at just less than 0.5% behind Hunting Horn is the Insect Glaive. Now, Glaive has never been a top tier weapon in terms of damage, or even a super high popularity weapon, but it is, I feel, consistently middle of the park, but it seems to have fallen off quite sharply in the first 5 months here in Rise. I personally think that this is due to the odd complexity of the button combinations on Switch right now. Insect Glaive is completely unique in how you aim and how you use the wire bug. It just isn't the same as any of the melee weapons, and the aiming and wire bug also don't strictly follow what we see with the ranged weapons. And I just think that the amount of odd combos you have to remember to play this efficiently has really turned a lot of people away from this weapon here in Rise. Now, it's still a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed the time I've played it, but I just think they could have made it a little bit more intuitive. Getting down to the bottom 3, in 12th place falls Charge Blade. Now, if you've played any Charge Blade at all in Rise, you will not be shocked by this because the file hitboxes are so awful in Rise. They don't seem to have any of the height that they did in previous games, which really mitigates them against anything that can fly, and a lot of the time they seem to just flat out miss for no reason at all. This is really frustrating, and honestly, it's quite shocking that they have yet to fix this issue or even really address it. Now, coming in second to last with 6.9%, nice, is the Gun Lance. Honestly, the only reason I think that this isn't in dead last is that it has that really cool rocket-propelled move that can shoot you across the map at lightning speeds. The DPS is just awful, it's probably the weakest weapon in the game, and honestly there's just not much variety. Maybe 3-ish that are even semi-viable right now, and even that is a stretch. Finally, coming in dead last as the least popular weapon currently in Rise is the Lance. Now, this really isn't super shocking. I expect to see this towards the bottom almost always, and I feel like in Rise they just didn't really do anything special with it. A lot of people, for the entire Monster Hunter series, have always found Lance to feel just really clunky as it, you hop around, you don't get a good roll, all these sort of things. It does have a relatively high skill ceiling, and it does feel really good to pull off sick counters and get those juicy hits in, but all in all, it's just kind of the same old Lance that no one is super into. A lack of variety in what weapons are good also hurts it just a little bit. Now, the next metric that they provided for us in the Hunter analysis is the most popular buddy pairings. A very low 0.15% of hunters are taking just a Palico, which obviously makes sense, as why would you take one when you can take two of anybody you'd like? Up next, 11.5% of people are taking double Palico. This seems to me to probably be mostly speedrunners or people who need double buffs for their hunts, as you can get affinity attack, whatever. Then, less than 0.5% of people are taking a single Palamute. Again, why take one when you can take two? Following that up, 4.14% of people are taking two Palamutes. Again, I feel like this is going to be speedrunners that don't want specific buffs or ailments that Palicos provide. Like personally, I know that me and some friends have done this where just one person brings their Palico and everybody else brings Palamutes because we don't want certain Palico buffs to mess with the script of the run. Then, by far the most popular is, of course, one of each, one Palico, one Palamute. That way you get the travel speed of the Palamute along with the skill set of your choice in your Palico. An overwhelming 70.36% of hunters are choosing this option on their hunts, which is over double all the other options combined. Then finally, about 13% of hunters are just not taking any buddies at all. I would assume that the vast majority of this is going to be people who play TA, which means no traps, no pets, no environmental traps, etc., stuff like that. The final stats provided here are the top 10 quests. At number 10, we have the Steely Storm with Kushala Daora. This iteration of Kushala is definitely one of, if not the best, ever in the Monster Hunter series. Kushala's materials are also needed for a lot of endgame equipment and decorations, so this one isn't too surprising. Coming in at the 9th most popular quest is It's Gonna Get You with Gos Harag. Now, Gos Harag materials are needed for a lot of endgame things, decorations and weapons, etc., and they have fairly low drop rates even if you do manage to break the appropriate parts, so it's pretty obvious to see why this one makes it in. In 8th place comes the Ancient Illusion with Chameleos. He has awesome weapons and is a really good fight, and he's definitely a clear cut to make the top 10. In 7th, we have those Crowned Apex. Then, just above that, in 6th place, we have the Emperor of Flame. Teostra is a very awesome fight, plus his materials are needed to make a lot of high tier armor, weapons, and decorations, which just puts him outside the top 5. Then we have Return of the Basil Goose. He's got super good armor that is really good for very specific types of weapons, and his weapons aren't terrible, and he's a big time fan favorite, so we're not shocked at all to see him just scrape into the top 5. Next, in 4th place, we have the Serpent Goddess of Thunder. Now, this was the best way to farm melee materials for most of the game's early life, so there's not really much surprise to see her up here in the top 4. Coming in 3rd, we have Clad in Hellfire with Magnum Aloe. His weapons were super good right at the beginning, and he's just an all-around fantastic fight. There's really no shock to see him all the way up here. In 2nd place, we have the Allmother. Again, you need her materials for a lot of things. Very cool fight. It's the end of the story. It's just really not a shocker to see it up here. And of course, number 1 is Valstrax. Great armor, fantastic fight, pretty much the best armor for any sort of raw build at all. So we're not too shocked to see him up here in the number 1 spot. Now this is something that's very cool, and I'm glad that they've done, and I think that if they continue to do it, it will keep a lot of people at least somewhat interested in what's going on with Rise. I hope to see a lot more of these coming from Monster Hunter in the coming months, and if you guys enjoyed it, leave a comment down below and tell me what your favorite metric is, or tell me which weapon you think should have been higher up on the list. With all that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you haven't already, don't forget to drop a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel and want to see more Monster Hunter content. I wish you guys all a good day and happy hunting.